Welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we cut through the bullshit
Greggy,
so we can get naked.
you can't say that.
Why not? How would you say it then?
Well, maybe more like, welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we undress emotionally so we can undress physically.
That's exactly what I said. Not sure what the problem is. Welcome to episode number
101.
101. We hope you enjoyed our 100th celebration. We're still looking for people to go out there and fill in that form. Sign up for 25% discount to our session package and a chance to win 3 free sessions. So what are you waiting for?
Three free sessions. Three free
Can't
sessions.
I don't know what you guys are waiting for. We haven't seen enough of those. So stop right now, pause, come back when you're done. But go to that link. We'll put it in this week too. Fill out that form and we'll be entered in. Plus you'll get a coupon code for 25% discount.
And we don't ever discount our sessions. So this is like a steal of a deal.
Yep. And you can
it's
go
going
play
to
our
go
game.
away.
Yeah. Your favorite thing. Amy hates when people do that, but now she's doing it to everyone else. It's going to go away. Scarcity.
No, I mean, I hate when they say the doors are closing. They're just going to shut.
Better go get that coupon. The doors are closing. It's going to shut. All right. We are ready to dive into this week. We are working on something in our class, our group coaching class, which again is very awesome. And you should join. Lots of good assets out there. We are filling up that library full of worksheets for you to work on and videos for you to watch as you join.
It's kind of like taking a class in relationships.
Yeah.
Only you get feedback live and you get coaching and you get the tools and skills, you know?
Right. But we see this a lot in our couples and we see it in ourselves. There's some strategies out there that are not so good. We call them our losing strategies, and there's always something better, which we call our winning strategies. And the losing strategy we want to talk about this week is the losing strategy of people pleasing or accommodating. And you know what? This one we see a lot because it's really what we were taught to do growing up. As we grew up and came into relationships, we were always taught like it's our job to make someone happy.
Yes. Or all of us start out needing external validation.
Right.
Like every single human being, that's how we are born. And we learn to start to conduct ourselves in the world is through like, you do something well, you get praise and you get rewarded. You do something poorly or that is considered wrong or bad, and you have a consequence and a punishment. So that type of external feedback is the way all of us start. And so it is the beginning, but it's not where we're supposed to end. Like developmentally, it is the first stage. But some of us, a lot of us, myself included, get stuck here and we don't move forward, and we keep using that external reference and needing that instead of developing our own internal.
It was even tied into deeper things than that, right? I think my worth was even tied to it, right?
Right. You're a good child. You're a good son. You're a good person.
Yep.
Yes.
And if I did those things I was supposed to do and I checked those boxes of those things I should do, then I had great value and I was worth something.
Right. And I think that there is some truth, and that's how we all start out. And so I don't want to shame that. That is the beginning that all of us learn. We all want people to like us. We all want to be praised and validated. And so this is sort of like our internal wiring that gets us started in programming how to be just a human. However, it's, again, not the end. It's the beginning.
And then it really, really doesn't work in marriage and intimacy.
Especially eroticism and intimacy. I think there can be a little bit of like self-sacrifice, a little bit of service that can go okay in the domestic. There can be service to your children or to your community or to your school or to your church that isn't so damaging.
I get worried when you say that. You brought that up in the last podcast, and I can really get worried about it because there's so many people I've seen, especially moms that stay home with their children and wives, that they lose themselves completely in that because it's the same thing. Like you should lose yourself and serve, serve, serve because your value is based on it. And so even just hinting that it's okay sometimes and not makes me a little nervous.
Well, I don't think there's, for example, any way to bring a child into the world without self-sacrificing and serving them. Like it just is a reality. And so I think there has to be some room that there are times and periods and places where self-sacrifice is necessary in the domestic. But I don't think it is the fundamental principle that everything should be based on.
Well, maybe I'm arguing the fact of one word then.
Okay.
I don't mind that we sacrifice. And if when I look at sacrifice, potentially it says, hey, we want to do something or need some or desire something, and we decide that we won't have that thing or won't do that thing so that we can serve and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Self-sacrificing is where I get hung up.
Oh,
because
okay.
when you put self in front of it, that means you've sacrificed yourself, who you are, what you believe in, what you stand for something else.
I gotcha.
And I don't believe you ever have to or should ever have to get rid of who you are and sacrifice oneself to bring children to this world.
I would agree with that. So I see what you're saying about the self word. I saw it a little differently, but I see why it means that.
What did you see when you saw self?
Well, just that, like, having born children, myself, my body sacrificed itself to bring forth a child in many ways, not only through pregnancy, but in those first 2 years. Like it's literally myself, my body, all of my parts that had to contribute to that sacrifice. So I just see it as meaning like your personhood is willing to sacrifice something.
Yeah, I just think we got to be very, very careful because we get into this pattern of it's righteous to self-sacrifice. It's the right thing. Like you should give up yourself and who you are so that you can bless and help others. And I've seen so many patterns of miserable people not knowing who they even are or what value they bring to the world other than sacrificing themselves.
And that's really what we're talking about today. And in the people-pleasing accommodation, it's a tricky one because on the surface, it looks nice.
Which makes it even ickier, I think.
It can look generous. It can look like a good thing. And sometimes it even sounds like a good thing. But there's a huge difference between people-pleasing and generosity. The underlying motive is entirely different. And I think that's what we're sort of discussing in sacrifice versus self-sacrifice is the underlying motive. But in people-pleasing or accommodation, you are shape-shifting or erasing yourself or disappearing or serving or accommodating someone to earn their approval, to earn their validation, to manage their emotions. If we're talking about generosity is giving or sharing or maybe sacrificing because you want to. It is a choice, whereas the people-pleasing and accommodating is coming from a fear. Like, if I don't do this, then my spouse won't love me, or my parents won't approve of me, or I will be punished in some way, or I won't be thought of in a respectable way. And so there's underlying fear, like I'm doing this, trying to manage and control others' perspectives, opinions, how they respond to you, where generosity is a choice you make. You give to give. It's not for an outcome. It's not to earn approval. It's not to get some type of reward. It is just a choice for you to give.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been around someone who is in the active process of doing this.
People pleasing?
It's almost exhausting. I don't know. It's maybe I see myself into it too much and that's why it's on me, but it's something that's just almost repulsive to me because they're using their quote unquote, and you can see me online if I'm doing it, but you can't, their goodness and desire to bless your life really to bolster themselves and to control you.
Right. It's got a covert contract in it. If I do this, then you will love me. Then you will take care of me. Then you will notice me. Then you will stay happy. Then you won't leave me. And that's that contract that, first of all, it keeps you dependent upon them. So then you don't have a self. And also the other person, I don't even know if they, sometimes we know there's a contract going on, but most of the time we don't. And so it's like hasn't been agreed on. And the other thing that happens is when you people please, you disappear. You erase yourself. And in order to have a relationship, there has to be substance. There has to be you, right? Like the essence of you. And when you erase yourself, you erase that possibility for two people to connect because you've disappeared.
It really is the managing of that risk.
Yes. Yes.
I can limit the risk by pleasing this other person or doing the things that they think they want so that they see me in a light that I want them to see me in. Then they will ... They
will love me, stay with me, like me, approve of me, validate me. I will earn my worth through them. They will see me as good, wholesome, desirable, attractive, etc., etc., etc.
I saw this really in a recent client of mine that we're coaching, and they're in a pretty bad place, this couple, and probably have every right for one of them to leave the relationship. And I found them folding in and hiding behind their children, actually, which was interesting. So the behavior that they were fighting against in their spouse, which was unacceptable because of their children. But yet it was downright attack and offensive to them. And they had folded into that, saying, I'm okay, but I might stand up because of my children. So it was an interesting way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And I kept having to remind them, like, no, like your safety, your happiness, your joy, your need to have a true partner exists.
It matters too.
And it matters just as much as your children's.
So often we will take a stance for children or for someone else, but not for us. And that's the accommodation that's happening, right? Where you don't have a boundary for yourself. And so you're going to let others disrespect or walk over you or try to manage them or try to earn something rather than knowing you have your own worth. You have your own permission to exist, to take up space, to be a part of the equation. And you matter too, just as much as your children.
Exactly. I mean, why is it so difficult, do you think, for us to feel like we matter, to take up space?
Because I think then you risk negative perspectives, you risk judgment, you risk others saying, well, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't want that. So you risk getting invalidated.
Which is very likely in marriage.
Yes. Very likely that at some point, in some way, you're going to invalidate your spouse and they're going to invalidate you. In fact, I think it's impossible not to. But I think even in the larger sense, when you're trying to please in your family or please for your parents or please at work or please, accommodate for neighbors, what you are trying to do is protect against any rejection, invalidation, or any sort of negative judgment.
So how did this show up for us?
So for me personally, as a person, and then between us, my people pleasing was like, if my children look a certain way, then I will know that I'm doing okay as a mom. So I am losing myself over trying to support this image of how my children are either achieving or not achieving. Between us, it looked like I will just try and keep you happy and try and figure out what that happiness is and manage it, but not actually have my own desire or my own permission to take up space. Like even in finances, I remember you had permission to spend where it would be like I would have to ask you permission, not because you were controlling anything, but because I didn't have my own internal sense of permission.
No, the crazy thing is that when I gave you permission, it made you even more angry. Like I could never figure it out. Like, yeah, you should go spend that. And you like get the pouty angry thing. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then if you want to go even crazier, let's go crazy into this one. That's great. So this is a perfect example. Finally, you came to me. I'm done with this. I'm not doing the finances anymore. You've got to do the finances. And I said, okay, I'll do the finances. And then 3 or 4 months into it, you're like, I don't like this. And they're like, why? Because you don't love me. And what are you talking about? you don't spend money on me. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so it was like there was no win in this situation because you felt like if I did give to you, that we were like breaking the family or ruining the family finances. And if I didn't give it to you, then I didn't love you and you weren't worth something. It was
right,
quite
because
the trial.
within me, I didn't have permission yet to exist and take up resources. It was all of these resources should only go towards my spouse or my children. And yet there were things that I maybe legitimately needed, but I didn't have permission.
I find it interesting because I think even during that time that there were things that you were consuming, but in your mind you were sacrificing everything.
Oh, interesting. So it was still part of the martyr.
Yeah, you were totally like, oh, I can't have that. I can't do that. But, you'd come home from Costco with, a few extra things or order something on Amazon for a few extra things. And I'm not complaining or didn't mind it, but I think it was a whole mindset of I'm not worth it or I can't consume. And then you go, well, the hell with it. And then you would, right?
In our erotic part of our life, I was trying to perform for you, which is a people pleasing, right? Without ever actually finding what my desires were. And when you try and perform for someone, again, you're not actually really present. You're like showing up again in a performance, but a performance is an act. It's not really who you are and where you're actually at. All of that is hidden and masked and covered. And so, as we talk about all the time, what makes eroticism thrive is presence. And so if you're performing, there's no presence. And in people pleasing, I see so many women like myself try to show up in this, like I'll give you this, or I'll do this so we can stay married, or I have to do this so that I don't lose you. But what's missing is actually them and their presence. And the presence is what makes it possible. And so this people pleasing erases them and it erases desire, because desire also has to have choice and presence and freedom. And then on the other side, for you, the spouse, it's empty. It's empty intimacy. There's no connection in it because your spouse isn't even there. So like maybe an act was done, but it still doesn't have the replenishing quality that intimacy can offer.
I think from my side, I wasn't showing up and exposing myself of who I really was. I was hiding those kind of things. I wasn't truthful about my behaviors. I wasn't truthful about how I felt or thought because I only wanted to just see the good sides of me, right? Because I was seeking that approval so much. Again, that pattern that was established as a child over and over again. If my parents knew this about me, they wouldn't love me or care for me. We talk about my childhood and truth telling, right? And this pattern of knowing that if I really told the truth, bad things would happen. I think of a big example is that I had a childhood friend who lived next door, and he came to me one day and he had a cigarette lighter, and he'd happened to come upon it at the grocery line. So he'd 5-finger discounted it to start with and stolen it. And he had it on him, and we thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so we went off to the local, we called it the bike path lot. It was an empty lot in the neighborhood that we'd built a bike trail on and jumps and stuff. But it
like
was
for a house.
Yeah,
But the
it
house
should have been
wasn't
built on a
there.
house, but it wasn't there. And so we went back in the trees and we started using this lighter to light leaves and things on fire. And it was the coolest thing in the whole entire world. Well, one of those times we lit something on fire and we couldn't get it out. And so we fled the scene as quick as possible. And the fire department came and they put it out. Nothing was badly damaged, just some trees on that lot. But someone in the neighborhood, one of the kids in the neighborhood, had seen us fleeing the scene and had mentioned that we were there. And my mom had gone and defended us, and no, that would never happen. And so even in her defense at that point, it put me in a position where I wasn't about to raise my hand and say, oh yeah, that was me playing with a lighter that my friend stole. And I remember the utter shame that I had. I remember going to my room that night and just crying like I was broken and I was the worst person and no one could find out because I had done this terrible thing and then I had lied to my parents about it. They found out eventually. I can't remember how it finally came out, but it was just the pattern that I had as a child, knowing that for sure my worth was tied up in the things I did. And that if I didn't do the right things, then there was something wrong or broken about me. And so when I would do the things that would happen to a human, like most little boys wanting to play with fire, just natural human things, I would have to lie or hide them so that people couldn't find out. And so it was a pattern that was really easy, came really easy to me.
To protect you from punishment, from shame, from confronting that you weren't as perfect as your parents thought you were.
And that totally came into our relationship.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
And I think maybe at the first, if I would have been completely honest, you may not have stuck with me, right? I don't know. Maybe there's some truth to that part, right? But really, there was a lack of intimacy because you couldn't choose me. And the thing I wanted more than anything else in the world was to be chosen and for have you to freely choose me, but you couldn't because you didn't know who I was. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing better when that spouse knows everything about you, your deepest, darkest secrets, who you really are, the good and maybe the not so good, the things that you're working on. I can't say the things that are bad about you because I get slapped by that anymore. So I can't say that anymore.
Tony Overbay corrected you on that.
Tony Overbay got all over me. Things that are curious, you're curious about why you're working on those things and not quite like what you like. You're not willing to expose yourself in those areas because you're not willing for the disapproval or the other things that might come from that.
Or disappointing someone.
Right.
I do think the ways and modes that I have stepped into people pleasing or accommodating were to avoid disappointing others, to try and protect, them having a good opinion of me. And what's interesting is you think you're protecting the relationship by doing this. Like you think you're not only protecting the relationship, but sometimes it even looks like I'm being so kind or generous. And it's really actually destroying it.
I think that's the whole twist on it, is that you can not only do it knowing that it might not be the healthiest thing for a relationship, but you can go up on the higher ground and be pious about it too, right? Holier than thou, like this makes me better than other people because I'm doing this sacrificing or I'm doing all these wonderful things. To me, that's the ultimate like twist to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of this too comes up in conflict, like as couples, if they can like start to get down to a root issue, it's right before you get to that like root issue that the people pleasing, or it's like a way to U-turn out of like really addressing the core of something. And then again, of course, you just keep rinsing and repeating the same patterns. But there's like this moment of, am I actually going to be able to tolerate them not having a good opinion of me, or them being disappointed, or showing myself honestly and still holding on to my worth? Like there's this moment right there that is so scary. That's when you feel all the risk of the relationship.
I really like it. The one couple we had on, one of our clients, he said it the best, right? He said, I was sitting here on the hot seat being coached by Amy. And I'm like, am I going to say this out loud? Is this going to, okay, here I go. I'm about to say this. And the fear that was going on in that moment was real.
Very real. And we've been there.
Yeah.
And when we actually do go there, we're not perfect. Sometimes we take the U-turn of people pleasing and accommodating. But when we actually don't take the U-turn, step into the courage, step into the honesty, like you feel it in your whole body, that shift from like, okay, I'm not people pleasing. I'm not accommodating. I'm not going to say what they want to hear just to say it. I'm actually going to speak what's true. It's terrifying. And I think that's why we avoid it.
Absolutely. And I found the interesting part about that whole conversation that we had with this couple is I turned to the wife and said, well, what did you think about that? And she was like, I was just so proud of him. I just couldn't believe that he was speaking the truth.
The interesting thing too is when you're talking about these things, and most of the time you're already living them out.
The spouse can track you.
Yes, you're already living them out. And so it's just about like speaking in with your mouth what the reality already is. And so often we avoid that, pretending like, oh, we can hide from this or pretend it's not happening. But you're already living in it. Like I was coaching one couple and he was hesitant. He wanted to be able to tell her something. He wanted to be able to make a promise to her. And he didn't actually think he could or wanted that promise. And so he was pretending. And she was tracking this and knowing that he was saying one thing but doing another, right? And so I just suggested to him, be truthful. You're already living this out. You're already both experiencing it. You think you're protecting her from hurt by promising this, but you're not. She's just feeling betrayal every time. So why not just speak the truth and give each other the choice? Like, here's what's actually true about me. I recognize you're going to have a choice in the face of that, but here's what's true. Instead of doing this dance, pretending like you both don't see what's happening.
So I know we've hit on it a few times, but we are, specifically talking about the antidote or the way to get over this is by telling the truth, right?
Yes.
Being honest. Why so often does doing this cause the person that are like, okay, I'm going to tell the truth now, they become brutally honest in a way that's not helpful?
Right, like mean.
Yeah. So explain that.
Well, I think, again, that's just a form of blame.
Is that the other side of the coin? You're
Yes.
taking it away,
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's not my fault, it's yours because you did this. That's justification, that's blame. Honesty is when you own who you are, why you've chosen to do something, or why you, like what your motive or reason or mistake or like whatever it was, you're owning you. It's not about pointing or directing the blame or any blame or shame or justification towards anything else.
So it doesn't give you the right to go say all these awful things about your spouse just because you're being truthful and honest?
No, that's not truthful and honest. That's cruel.
It seems to almost every time drive to that, right? It's kind of like when we share our emotional daily check-in, almost to the T, the first thing that happens after the first week, if they've done it on a regular basis, we get back and we talk about it and they spent 5 minutes telling the other person all the things that they've done to cause awful emotions in them. You did this and it made me this. You did this and it made me that. You did this, you do this and it makes me this. And I'm like, well, you missed the whole concept here and the purpose behind
First of all, emotion sharing is about, I feel this. I made this mean. I, not you.
And the thing I love to tell my clients is, oh, by the way, no matter what they did, you still own the emotion. Same with the validation, right? No one can actually validate you because they could say all these great things about you. And you still have to decide, your mind still has to decide, is that true or not?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're making the choice.
Yeah.
So no one can hurt your feelings. You could decide whether those feelings are hurt. That doesn't give the right for someone to be cruel and do things to you that they shouldn't. But it also gives you the right to stand and be whole and take ownership of who you are and how you feel and the emotions around you and your day.
Mm-hmm. Telling the truth is hard because I think first you have to see it for yourself. You have to see what's happening in yourself. And we really, again,
we got to admit that we didn't do things that we would find Okay.
Right. Like even against your own code
Personal
of
integrity.
conduct.
Yeah.
Yeah, your integrity. And that's hard. It's hard to do that. It's necessary and it's worthwhile, but it's not easy.
How do we do that and not take it to the next step, which is shame,
And pity.
pity? I mean, that I'm thinking of a client recently. It was as soon as I pointed it out, next thing it was is I'm terrible, I'm broken, I'm never going to be enough. I'm an awful person.
Again, that's just the other side of people pleasing. It's I'm a victim. I need you to validate me. Like one is I'll earn your validation, and the other is I will be emotional and try and draw it out, extract it from you. And I think when you see your shortcomings, your blind spots, it is to recognize your flaws and your worthiness at the same time.
Can you give us an example so we get some specifics?
Was coaching a client recently whose husband was actually very doting on her for several years into their marriage. And he stopped doting on her because she said, "You don't need to do that. I don't need flowers. I don't need this. I don't want this. You don't have to spend money on me." And so he stopped spending money and he stopped taking the efforts because she would say, "Don't do that." Well, fast forward 10, 15 years, and she's like, I do want there to be attention and affection coming my way, but I'm the one that shut it down. I'm the one that said, don't do that. Don't give to me. And so it's really easy. They were in a recent conversation for her to say, you never notice me. You never do anything nice. You never show me and she's not wrong. Right? You could say, oh, that's the truth. But the truth is really a step deeper than that, in that I was the one that constantly told you, don't do this, and discouraged you from doing this, and didn't receive or welcome any of your affections. And now I see the impact of that, and I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And there was a lot of rejection felt on his part as she rejected many of his bids and advances and gifts and generosity. And so for her to say, I see the rejection that I caused you, and I take ownership for that, and I feel sorry for that. And here's what I'm realizing now. Whereas usually the conversation is, why don't you ever, you never, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And that's the opposite of honesty, right? That's criticism and blame. But to take ownership and say, I created this. And I realize you were just responding to what I told you and asked for.
Yeah, I think if we look at differentiation, it's that being in the middle in differentiation means you're two whole people, but you're close to each other, right? You're in close proximity to each other. And within that close proximity to each other, you're going to cause some pain, you're going to cause some suffering. I saw this in me is like when I had realized the pain that I had caused you in demanding sex or trying to extract your sex out of you or validating myself through our sexuality, that I went to a place of that's never going to happen again. And that's when I went toxic independent and kind of shut that down. But that in that form wasn't the truth, right? It wasn't really what I desired or wanted. I remember standing in the shower thinking about it like, I can't let Amy know I would even want to be with her because, and this was after that period of time when we gotten back together and we'd had intimacy again. I had shut down any and all those desires because I was afraid of the consequence of doing it could be. I knew the PTSD had come from doing it out of obligation. But in that realm, I didn't give you choice to choose anyway, right? And this is when we ended up on Room for Two with Jennifer Finlayson 5. She has a podcast where she brings couples on and you make up pseudonyms and you pretend like you're some other couple so that she can coach you. And we came on to that and she coached us and she's like, well, good try, but you're totally still not differentiated. You're just on the other side of that coin.
You just went from a mesh to toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was not having the ability to be honest with you, willing to accept the potential rejection and process through the emotions that came from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to go on either side of that coin.
And I think when we're talking about eroticism and intimacy, the only way there can actually be eroticism is that if you can have a no and a whole body yes. If there isn't room for a no, then any affection or intimacy is like a debt that has to be paid instead of a choice. It's like an obligation or a duty or an expectation. And it takes the sacred, replenishing, joyful joy out of it. And so in people pleasing, I see so many women that will say yes when they're really a no because they want to avoid any consequences. They want to manage their spouse. And that's really unkind. Even if when you say no, there is some tension or friction and things don't go well, it's still more honest and kind to do what's true to you than to sacrifice the potential for desire and the potential for intimacy.
Yeah, and we tend to gaslight ourselves after that point, right? So once we realize that we shouldn't be extracting this out of our spouses, and that we should be able to ask and then receive whatever answer that is, the first thing that every man does is like, I'm not disappointed. I can't be disappointed. Because if I'm disappointed, then that means that I'm trying to extract from him. And that's just not true. Disappointment is a natural emotion that comes from when you desire something and you ask for it and the answer is no. And so it's not whether you got the no or the yes that's important. It's how you react and process through that no and yes. Mm-hmm. Both of them can be damaging if you got a yes and didn't process it through correctly, or if you get a no and you don't process through correctly. So again, it's that tricky state of being able to stay within yourself, understand your emotions, process through them, own them yourselves, and be able to stay present in that moment.
And when you're accommodating or people pleasing, what you're doing is saying, I'm going to set all of my presence and emotions and self aside and fold in to this other person. And especially in intimacy and eroticism,
does not work.
It does not work. And so many of us think they're broken or don't have desire, but it's really that pattern right there. When you erase yourself in any way, there can't be desire.
Yep. It is tricky, right? Again, let's go back and remind ourselves we were taught this pattern at a young age. We've built it up over years and years and decades. I remind my clients, like, man, I did that for 17 years. What makes me think that in 6 months it's going to go away, right? Your mind's going to go back to that to protect yourself. It knows that, hey, I can get rid of the uneasy feelings right away if I hide, if I please, if I lie and don't tell the truth.
But when you please or hide or accommodate, you still have the negative emotions of resentment.
It comes out later and worse.
Yes, resentment.
But your primitive side of your brain thinks it took care of it.
No, there's still a cost.
Yeah.
The resentment, the disconnect. Sometimes there's disgust or like judgment or again, the emotions they're still negative emotions, but I feel like those are more damaging than the discouragement or disappointment that comes. That makes sense and can be worked through and is honest, and it allows a couple to still figure out how they want to move forward. The other ones are like hidden and insidious and start eroding things that, I don't know, I feel like they're more problematic.
Well, absolutely, because we talk about when we don't take care of those emotions, they just come out sideways in ways that we don't like even more than the discomfort. But we can't see that in the moment. Our primitive brain is just trying to get us to the fastest route to comfort.
Right. And comfort isn't always the path.
Or
Discomfort's the currency of your dreams,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes it's like step into that courage of being truthful and honest about yourself. And again, we say all the time, courage does not feel great in the moment. I feel like I'm sweating all over, my heart's racing, I'm sick to my stomach. Sometimes I feel faintish. Like, it's not that it's actually a pleasant state to be in, but it's a productive and honest that aligns with your integrity state to be in. And I would rather be in courage than resentment. Neither of them feel great.
But one is productive. And
One
will
is
lead to-
productive and one is unproductive. Yes.
You think about all the great moments we've had and connections that we've gone through. They really took those moments of courage and being uncomfortable to be able to get there.
They really did. Like, we had to face that risk head on, which meant the opposite of people pleasing, the opposite of accommodating. It meant honesty about ourselves. And again, all of those things are uncomfortable. But the ROI on them
Big.
is so much better. There is no ROI on resentment.
Yeah. Just awful.
It just sucks.
This sucks. All right. We understand this is stuff that's hard, right? And again, we never end up in the middle of differentiation and park there forever. It doesn't happen. We find ways to be able to find ourselves trying to go back to people pleasing and being enmeshed, or saying, I don't care about you, and being toxic independent. It's a swing across that pendulum, I believe. But this gaps get shorter, and the quickness in which we can realize what we're doing and correct it gets faster with the right tools. So we would love to help you find those tools for yourself. So join us on langfordlifecoaching.com. There's lots of ways to engage us. There's free consults that you can sign up for.
There's also a really cool free desire guide, an interactive guide with several different sections that can walk you through several of our main concepts that Greggy has created. That is pretty darn awesome. Even though it's not paper and pen, like I prefer, the interactiveness of it is pretty amazing and has a lot of insightful steps to help you see yourself more honestly and more accurately.
If you have downloaded that guide or went there, it'd be worth doing it again. And I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. We now send you an email with that link so that you have a place to go back to it, so you don't have to bookmark it or remember it. And we'll keep upgrading it and making it better.
Updated and upgraded it.
We just put a new couple sections in there, added some practices in there, some tools around those practices. So if you haven't seen it in a while, go back up there and to langfordlifecoaching.com, and it's the free desire guide. Interactive desire guide is what it's called. There's a button up on the top of that screen. And go do it again. There's nothing stopping you for signing up again. And you'll get it sent to you. And then check back regularly for a couple reasons. One, we change over time a lot.
As a human being.
Not
the guide, but you mean as a person.
Not the guide. The guides change too because they get updated, but we change. And it is a good practice to go back and do it. I mean, for me, as I update the guide, I go back and fill it out again. And it's eye-opening, and it's asking me questions to think, and all those things are good. So returning to it often is a good idea. Someday I'll figure out how to make it so your spouse can fill it out and you can fill it out, and then you can compare together. It does that, but you have to do it on the same computer at the same time. So you have to switch back and forth to do it, which isn't a terrible thing, but it would be nice if you could do it separately and come back together. But again, go up there, click on it again, and go take a look. It's very helpful. And until next time,
Keep undressing your intimacy.
bye-bye.